Now we will have a conversation with our two last speakers and young climate leaders from across the world. This session will be led by the founder and CEO of Future Leaders, Elin, Nørve.
Thank you, Penelope, for those inspiring and hopeful words. Dear Excellencies, I'm extremely excited to be here today. And even more so, I'm excited to welcome back on stage our chair for this event, Christiana Figueres, Penelope Lea, and also the young woman who will be the youth delegate to the UN Climate Summit later this September. So, I hope that you will all join me in welcoming them back on stage. Great to have you here. Christiana, I would love to start with you. Over the last years, we've seen that youth, young voices, have been increasing, both become stronger and louder.
Thank God for that.
Thank God for that. Do you think this will have an impact on the climate debate?
I do think, but what I want to answer is, I don't think, I know. I know that it has already had quite an effect, because you see the references when people speak, when they write, when press or thought leaders, they are constantly referring. The youth has spoken with a sense of authority and credibility that is unflinching. And so when people speak or write, they are bound to reference the young people individually, or the climate strikes, or the youth movement. Since this started, I have not heard anyone who is any kind of a thought leader on climate speak or write, or the press, without a reference to the youth movement. And that's a remarkable achievement. Now, it's a good start, okay? Because I am sure that Penelope and all the rest of the young people don't aspire just to be reference points. They aspire to actually have an impact that goes beyond being mentioned and respected. So I think it's a good start that there's a reference point, and the next step has to be, and therefore, this is a decision that we are taking because we have understood. So I haven't seen the second part, but I'm seeing the first.
Penelope, you are one of these young voices, and you're one of the clearest speaking climate activists that we have here in Norway. And I know that you've been extremely excited to talk to Christiana and to ask her some questions. So I would actually like to give the word to you.
Thank you. You know, sometimes when I get scared or helpless, I have some tactics to get over it. And one of them is to watch some of your talks on YouTube.
Okay.
Your positivity and attitude really gets my spirit up. And I'm wondering, if you were 15 now, what would you have felt and what would you have done, do you think?
I don't think age has anything to do with it. If I were 15, or if I'm 63, which I am, I would be exactly the same person. And I'm grateful for the youth, what you're doing, but you're doing what all of us should have been doing. So I would be screaming in the streets which I am anyway. But given the fact that I'm 63 and that I have access to people who do make decisions, I am, without asking for your permission, I am using your voice to, frankly, to put much more pressure than I have in the past. When I was working for the United Nations, I had to be a pretend diplomat, and was probably the least diplomatic of all diplomats ever. But I'm now even less diplomatic. Yesterday, I was at one of the largest oil and gas conferences in Aberdeen, Scotland. And they invited me to address the conference. And I delivered a seething address to this industry. The amazing reaction is how many of the oil and gas leaders came up and thanked me. And you know what, Penelope? They thanked me in the name of their children. How important is that, right? How important is that? Because I think one of the things that you have done is you have reminded us all that we're parents. We're at the table, we're taking decisions, you know? But before any of that, the most important role that we play on this planet is to be parents, or aunts, or uncles, or whatever our family relationship is. And when you can reach these people who are making the decisions who are not in your interest, when you can reach them personally, straight into their heart, into what is really, really important to them, which is the future of their children, they actually are capable of making very different decisions.
I am sad to tell everyone that unfortunately Christiana will have to leave us now due to a death in her nearest family. She will attend a funeral in Germany this afternoon, but she will join us again tomorrow, so we look forward to that. We wish you safe travels and welcome back tomorrow.
Thank you.
Now, Sophia, I would love to turn to you. Sophia will be the messenger from Oslo Pax to the UN Secretary General, and we are very pleased to have you here. First, I am very curious, why is it important that young people are listened to all the way to the top of the UN building?
So you could say, like, yeah, it's proper that half of the world is represented. But I don't think that's the main reason. I think it's important that young people are listened to because we have some good solutions. And every person can just tell their own reality. And we need all of those realities to find the best solutions. And we don't only need young people, we need old people. And we need adults. And we need all of these to tell us all the different stories and really bring the solutions to the table, because we are heading for a crisis and we know it. So we don't have time to, just talk about some solutions from one part of the population.
When you represent us in the UN in September, there's going to be a lot of young voices from all over the world. And we all agree that we need to act both individually and as one. So what responsibility do we have as individuals, as nations, and as a global society?
I believe we as individuals have the responsibility to raise our voices when we see a system that works against our morale. Because in my everyday life, I feel like I need to make choices between my morale and the system's easy choices. And we have a responsibility to tell our stories, and we do strike, and we do say that this is a system that doesn't work with our morale. And then the politicians also have an important responsibility to take this serious, because they need to provide the opportunity for us to actually work with our morale. We know what choices we want to take, but it's very hard when, just taking a train to Bergen is 4 times the price and 4 times the time. So it's hard to actually do what we would want to do in the first place when we have a system that really, really works against what we need to do to create the future we want. And then, of course, we have a global framework for working with climate change. We have the Paris Agreement, and it urges us to act. But we all know that the Paris Agreement won't be anything without the nations really acting. So we need nations pushing each other to create climate justice, both to be transparent, to provide finance, to really cut emission. And we can't just wait for the others to take the lead. There is no nation in the world doing what they should do in this time. And maybe this is also an urge for Norway to act, to really act, because we have, a huge amount of money from the oil industry. So maybe, taking this global responsibility and act on behalf of the majority of the world and not just for our own interests. I think if the world was a real democracy, we wouldn't be chosen as the leaders.
Thank you for your input and thoughts. Now, as you all know, Oslo Pax is an international conference. It is also a climate-friendly conference. Therefore, we are lucky to be joined on video, very trendy, all the way from India and New Delhi. From the offices of the NGO, BBA, founded by the Nobel Peace Prize laureate, and this is what I've been working on all day, let me tell you, Kailash Satyarthi. We are here joined by Arman Sharma. And hello, Arman, how are you?
Hi, I'm doing well. How are you?
Good, all good. As a young climate activist in India, we are excited to hear your thoughts. What is the most important message you have to Oslo Pax and the UN?
Good morning, I'm Aman Sharma, and I'm studying modern school in New Delhi. And I'm really happy to be representing India at the Oslo Pax. I'm sure you've all heard of New Delhi till now, India's capital city. How many of you know that it is also the world's most polluted capital city? My home and my city is set to join the list of Indian cities to have no groundwater by 2020. That means that my fellow citizens and I are going to be stripped of our natural water resources in just about 120 days. And we say that the government and the corporations are to blame. We as citizens didn't do anything to induce this crisis. But perhaps that's where we went so terribly wrong. We didn't do anything. Not to save our planet, not to save our burning home. And that silence proved to be our greatest threat. You see, I feel petrified thinking what will happen to my household in January 2020 when we have no water. But I know that I'll make it due to me holding a certain position of privilege in society. But what about those who have so little and who come from the weaker sections of society? Those who work day and night for the facilities that we take for granted each day. And how can we, in our ignorance, think that it's okay to use up their carbon budgets? How can we let them live without a basic amenity like drinking water? So the climate crisis is not an elitist crisis. It is a human rights crisis. People are being denied their right to clean water and to clean air. The poor in my country have to walk kilometers just to fill a single bucket of water from a dying hand pump in a far-off village. And yet, we have sugar-coated the truth, ridiculed the facts, and stifled the figures. We've supported policies that degrade our home and increase the gap between the poor and the rich, the haves and the have-nots. My country has high levels of poverty and inequality. 73% of the wealth generated in 2017 went to the richest 1% in India. 600 million people are at risk from the water crisis and 700 million people from air pollution. I have lost 3 to 5 years of my life to air pollution, and India has lost 8.5% of its GDP to the same problem. In short, I think that children are being forced to pay for the wrongs of our past generations, and we've unthinkingly allowed companies and policies to sell our future for their profit, and in the process also given them access to the people who are dependent on us. And I just feel that as a child, I would like to say the policymakers that we don't care for your empty promises or your deceitful words, but as children, we want your work and your actions to speak. You are scared to admit the truth, and you're scared of what people will think and what they will say, what the rich will say. But we don't want that. You look for money when you look at our planet, but we look for love and we look for life. If little children like me can understand how grave the situation is, I find it funny that adults cannot. And over here, I think I'm not going to state any solutions because we have the science, we have the figures and the facts that we need. But I feel we still lack the basic compassion, the mindset, and the will to go with them. And it is shameful. It is shameful that children are having to tell people how to save the planet, beg their leaders to secure their future, and miss school to educate them on this crisis. I think we have to refuse to live in a world which is governed by a principle that gives murder justification through economic profit. And we need to refuse to live in a society where fossil fuels and coal plants are worth more than my life, my planet, and my future. And where microplastics are plastering my inside, and my share of the ozone layer has long gone before I could even get to it. I think everyone watching this needs to fight for the future of this planet. We need to fight for our rights, fight for the voiceless, fight for your nation. This is your planet. You don't have a second home that you can go for. This is our only chance, and this is the only place that we can inhabit as a community and as a society. So please step up, rise up to the challenge and save your planet. I would just like to pose a question to the panel. You know, we have a lot of climate summits happening regularly. Even in my country, in several countries, they run simultaneously. But we have still not been able to achieve the full vigor and the groundwork that we need from the resolutions that are passed. So how can we as a summit at the Oslo Pax aim to change that and really make a difference with what we talk of and what we decide today?
Thank you so much, Aman.
Thank you.
We are certainly glad to see that you are doing your part, and we're going to try our best to keep our part of the same promise. Now, I am excited to tell you that we're also joined from Nairobi in Kenya, where we have a young man who leads a youth group in the slum area, Mathare. Isaac Musa, are you with us?
Yeah, I'm with you.
Good. We're excited to hear what we can learn from your experience in the work you've done in Mathare.
Okay, I'm ready to share. Okay, first of all, greetings from Nairobi. My name is Isaac Mutisia Mwasa, but I'm known as Kaka. Kaka means brother in my community. And thank you for the opportunity to share my experience at the first Oslo Pax Summit. The country and the people of Norway are dear to my heart as they have supported our project in one of the largest slums in Africa, where I am from. I look forward to sharing my story a little in the program, but for now, I would like to briefly talk about the importance of youth inclusion in processes such as this and overall community building. First, as young people working with other young people, we must incorporate a do no harm approach to our work. It's also important to remember, as youth leaders, that is our responsibility to help other youth overcome barriers to participate for meaningful engagement and lasting results. Many in this room today are privileged, and I'm also privileged to help my youth overcome barriers. We must always ask ourselves, who is in this room? Who's around the room? And who's missing from the room? You must be in the room to negotiate around the table, to influence negotiations, and supported outside the room to build alliances, to collaborate with other stakeholders and partners. I look forward to elaborate more on my work at the Madare Environmental Conservation Youth Center. Thank you.
Now, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. We look forward to hear more and learn more over the coming hours of the conference. Now, I'm sad to tell you that this panel is closing up. But luckily, we are being joined by all these young voices later in the conference. I want to sincerely thank all of you for your contribution and to give us all hope for tomorrow. It is pretty clear that the young voices matter, and by what we've heard here, I think we can all agree that it's pretty certain that they will keep the fight going. So thank you very much.